July 7, 2023, months now after the charade of February 25, 2023, presidential election of Nigeria. Yes, the European Union just came out a few days ago with its own report of what they saw. And because they declared the truth of what they saw about that charade of February 25, 2023, Nigeria's presidential election, those who are trying to, build something, to put something on nothing, those who declare who have assumed presidential power, who imagine that they've now taken over government because they coronated themselves, are now rioting and disowning the reports. And actually we hear they even want them to withdraw. Recall that on the 12th of June in 2023, NINAS declared the period from May 29th, 2023 to whenever the litigation, the matter of who is president is finally concluded among the contenders, we declared this period an interregnum. And that whenever will include if another election is ordered until it produces an outcome that stands. And so we have come this day to share with our people what the situation we are in now means. Interregnum may sound like a big word to some, but it simply means a period without legitimate government in place. It simply means a period in which there is no legitimate government in place. We did not say there is no government. We say there is no legitimate government in place. There is power being exercised, but the question of authority, investing authority with a candidate that has come through election has not happened. So there is power being exercised without authority. And so talking about legality, it is legal, just like the Constitution of Nigeria that we have been talking about all the while. It's very much legal, but it's illegitimate. You couldn't call the document Constitution if you were to examine what constitutions truly mean. The same way, the government in place now that is that was in place, that was coronated outside the stipulation of the Constitution holding the Union together, is an illegitimate government. And it is within the context of that illegitimacy that we begin to explain the inconclusive election that is still ongoing. Where we are now is that the presidential election of 2023 is inconclusive, and it will remain inconclusive until concluded. That concluded being the point at which either the court makes a pronouncement, and that's the Supreme Court now, because after the Court of Appeal, somebody is bound to head to Supreme Court. Not just Supreme Court making pronouncement. That pronouncement could also be go and rerun the election or go and do a runoff between two candidates. Whatever comes out from there, until the date when that pronouncement is consummated. If it is to rerun, if it is to run off, that an election has now happened, and an outcome, a winner that is no longer in controversy has emerged. That is the length of the period of illegitimate government we're going to have, or the interregnum that we're going to have. We welcome some of our statesmen who have found the courage to come to the public space to declare the truth that we are in a period of illegitimate governors. I think it was on the 3rd of July that Chief Ayo Adebanjo went to Arise TV and stated it as it is. He says the election is inconclusive, the 2023 presidential election is inconclusive, and that it is still ongoing until there's a final resolution in the place of adjudication. And therefore, that the presidency of now is an illegitimate one because it was, instituted outside the stipulation of the Constitution. I think we can take 1 minute or two to see how he put it.
Jackson, I want to get your appraisal of the last 30 days plus of the Tinubu administration. How would you view the start of this particular administration? This is Aaron speaking here.
Unfortunately, Aaron, please, they are very, very sad for now. It's not to comment on Tinubu's administration, because we believe that the election is not completed yet. It's still in progress. That is why we are in court. So to be commenting on somebody who is there who we don't believe should be there until the final result in the course, it will be approbating and is probating. But acknowledging that if it's already confirmed there by the Supreme Court, then I can comment on the administration whether it's good or bad.
But regardless, as life and nature actually is, nature does not operate in a vacuum. Governors cannot operate in a vacuum. Someone must be there pending the outcome of other variables. And that is why we're bringing it to the fore, because till we get a judgment that says otherwise, he is the president and would have to live with the consequences of his decisions as it is right now. And that is why, as a statesman who lives in Nigeria, who is affected by this free subsidy, who is affected by the new taxation laws and every other variables in this present administration, we want to hear from you, because whether you accept him or not, he is our president as we speak.
Thank you very much. That will be the affair of those who have accepted him. That will not change our own position as to whether, you see, we are not affecting his, we are not talking of his ability. We are talking about the process of his getting there, which is flawed. So you people, you are mixing the issue. It's not a question, can he do it, can he do it well? Has he promised well? We have done that. I don't want to comment on that yet. I want to comment on that, the plenty to be said. But we said the way it goes there, mind the way Obi has gone to court, which we support. He said the process of getting there is flawed. How can you be something or nothing?
And then we come to Donald Duke that said the election is inconclusive and the person coronated president illegitimate. He went on to say a few other things. We know who and who may have consulted before coming public with that. So when you put these three in the order of occurrence, Chief Ayo Adebanjo, Donald Duke, European Union report on the election, and you take it, juxtapose it, or put it against the backdrop of the Interregnum, the June 12th Interregnum declaration by Ninas, you will then ask yourself, where will all this go? Where do we go from here? That's the question on everybody's lips. The Ninas answer to that question, and we better listen carefully. When we came out with constitutional force majeure to say that the Constitution of Nigeria has been delegitimized by the repudiation of the peoples of Nigeria, many did not understand it. They thought it was just another grammar. But in a matter of days and weeks, the stakeholders in the international circuit began to do things that showed Nigeria that it is now a disputed project. There's now a question mark. Loans that were easily accessible became impossible. Some even China pulled back a $1 billion loan. It was advancing for gas pipeline construction, all such things. Then the Buhari of the time began to borrow from black market. They went to Arab and Islamic bonds and all kinds of just black market borrowing, which they then managed in the dark. We have seen where all the billions went. Nothing you could point to other than ways and it all ended in ways and means that now come to 77 trillion. Monies taken without authorization. That's the meaning of ways and means. And so we come back to where do we go from here? NINAS is providing an answer. That answer had been in place since 2020 December. In the constitutional force majeure, the 5-point proposition in that constitutional force majeure, as you can see on display, acknowledgement of union dispute arising from constitutional grievances, commitment to decommission, jettison and decommission wholesale the unitary constitution of Nigeria. That's number 2. Number 3, commitment not to go to any further elections under that constitution because it can only reinforce the life of that constitution. That's number 3. And we're in July now. They say election happened in February. That item 3 of not going to any further elections, let nobody count 2023 election as an election that has, you can see, we're talking about the presidential. We're not bothered about the states and the little off-season elections here and there. The presidential election of 2023 is still in that fold of where we could say today in July of 2023 that we should suspend all talks about election and mandate from inconclusive election and face the matter of the constitution by which the union is convened and managed. 2 different things. The constitution by which the union is convened, that is that way the people having agreed to be in union, is in dispute. And the articles of that union, which is what you find the contents of the constitution. There are 2 different subject matters. If we do not resolve the first one, everything done in the second leg of we shall do our electricity this way, or do our security that way, or do our road waterway that way, or our election that way. Those things are they go to no issue. They are of no interest. Whose turn it is to govern, and how much money can be spent by everybody, or how many years. These are all things that are now contained in the Articles of Union. We have not settled the question of union. So back to the 5 points. For those who are asking, where do we go from an inconclusive election, an inconclusive presidential election in 2023? NINA's answer is to say, we must now go to transition to resolve the union dispute. It is those constitutional grievances that resulted in all of what has consumed the journey to the election, which was why we asked everybody, leave the elections alone, let's go and resolve the question of union and the terms of union. They didn't listen. We told them we'll be waiting for them on the bridge to that 2023. And that when they get there, we'll begin to address the question of union and the terms of union. We told them they will get into a logjam. They're in that logjam now. However it happened, this matter for another day. You may be told what you, there are things people can see, there are other things people cannot see. We are on the bridge, we're on top of that bridge of a 2023 election. And we will remain on top of that bridge until the issue of whether a president, legitimate president, has emerged is fully resolved. It could be in 10 months, it could be in 6 months, it could be in any length of time, because eventually the court will have to decide whether what has happened will stand, and if it's not standing, whether it is a rerun or a runoff between any two of the candidates. That these are all possibilities. If the court then decides, whether it's Court of Appeal or Supreme Court, if the court decides that the charade of 2025, February 25, 2023, that's the presidential election that happened in Nigeria in February of 2023, on the 25th. If the court will decide that the outcome will stand in the face of all of what we have all seen, then that constitution will go down with that decision. That 1999 constitution that we've been looking for how to bring down will actually be brought down by that decision. Let nobody pretend they didn't know where trouble came from. The candidate that have been declared winner is deficient in a mandatory requirement of that constitution, disputed as it is. At the time we are tolerating that constitution for the sake of peace, then you come with the brigandage of defying even that by pretending the 25% required at the FCT is no longer important. And then you go and do swearing. And then the fellow comes and begins to do all kinds of, knee-jerk actions. Oh, subsidy removed. Why are we discussing subsidy? What is subsidy? In a situation where the refining capacity is locked down by the same constitution, atrocious constitution. Refineries are on the exclusive list. For those who are planning how to come and riot in protest of a subsidy that's been withdrawn, the poverty that is now being deepened. We told everybody, don't go, if you go to election, some of you will be killed. You can see the killings have resumed on a more ferocious scale in the Middle Belt. You can see that poverty is now, increased amongst the people. You can see that all kinds of things that were the corruption we saw before. Who knows where the monies of Nigeria are at this point in time, and who is doing what in the darkness that has enveloped the land. And so, what should happen now to the question of where do we go from here? The election inconclusive has occasioned a constitutional logjam, and what we should do in that period is to go to transition, to accept that we have a problem that has to be solved, to accept that that problem is that constitution that has to be taken out, to accept that the journey to 2023 presidential election was ill-advised. It was a doomed voyage before it began. Therefore, to accept going to number 4 of our 5-point proposition, to get into the transitioning, to work out what to solve the union reconfiguration imperative. What is it we have to do to rework the union that is not working? The failed Lugadian experiment of 1914. That is what we must resolve now. And in the 5th point of proposition in the NINA's 5-point is to then present a time-bound transitioning, stipulating, spelling out the modalities and all the other, the time frame, the membership of who and who will have to take charge of what in that period. Just like South Africa did to ease itself out of apartheid constitution from 1990. We have reached that bus stop South Africa reached in 1990 under this constitution. We can see it all around. Everything is upside down. And so these things that the fellow that they coronated as the product of that, election that's still inconclusive, he began to do things, subsidy removed, appointments here and there. Knee-jerk, just trying to validate himself, to be clapped for, some international, portfolio investors will turn up. People who come with nothing. But they know you are trying to validate yourself. Therefore, they bring you blank check to sign for them, sign for us here. Like Gowon signed at the time of the Interregnum that came in 1966. Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon jumped into the saddle, declared himself a head of state. And because he was sinking from all sides, Britain turned up with a proposition for how to manage the situation for him and gave him dotted lines to sign for the oil and gas assets of eastern Nigeria. That was how the entire oil and gas assets of the eastern Nigeria of the time was consigned, was conveyed, was given away to Britain. He was illicit head of state, Yakubu Gowon, trying to validate himself in office, that signed off. Of course, Britain now went to Security Council, gave some members portions of the concession from that 100%. They took out 40%, gave other members of the UN Security Council of the time. Find out how Gulf oil came here. Find out how Egypt got here. Find out how Elf got here. It was from taking the portion that Britain gave to them so that they can come and beat down the owners of the assets. We are back to that same situation in which an illicit, an illegitimate president has been coronated, and in an attempt to validate himself, he's signing off on all kinds of things that a president that is mandated by the people will not do. We hear about the gas pipeline they're going to build to Morocco. At a time we have not settled. Look at this map, the dot in circle. Let those who are clapping and cheering about how the $11 billion could be earned per annum from selling the gas of eastern Nigeria. Let those who are rejoicing now find out whether the owners of that asset are on the table of that discussion. Or is it all these illicit things that will gang up for the second time in one generation to sell off the future of a people? It's not going to happen. The people you are talking to, the Kellogg and Co. that will do that pipeline, oh, you are trying to tell us that it is in the offshore of 60 kilometers of Akwa Ibom offshore that you are going to get gas. You don't know, you are the one that is illiterate in the subject matter. Some of us who were in the field, some of us who know how TSKJ became LNG, can tell you exactly where the gas deposits are. We can tell you the routes from where you can pipe to anywhere. And so the pretense that, oh yes, we've found new investors who have confidence, look at the kind of spokesmen, look at the kind of people surrounding this fellow as government of Federation of Nigeria. The hood does not make the monk, but it appears that in Nigeria, the hood is making the monk. Election 2023, presidential election 2023, inconclusive. Product of that election, illegitimate. This period, interregnum. You can take that to the bank. In the same light, a few days ago, we saw the INEC chairman addressing a retreat of the INEC as a commission to review what transpired with the 2023 general elections. And Yakubu, what are his other names, the chairman of INEC, found the courage to say, well, yes, mistakes were made and things didn't quite go right in some other place, but overall, that the INEC is learning its lessons, and that the future election will take care to correct some of those things. That invitation, that attempt to invite us to accept the lunacy of 2023 that happened in the name of election is not going to stand. that attempt will fail. 2023, there is no outcome from that election. It's inconclusive. We have been brought into a constitutional logjam, and we must go to transition now to sort out the cause of all of what has gone wrong. We remember that just in the period the result was declared the way Yakubu declared it, that some of the church leaders did say, oh, to Peter Obi, leave it as a will of God. We remember when Peter Obi came saying that it cannot be the will of God that people will steal other people's mandate, or that poverty will consume the populace, or killings will be taking place. INEC is inviting us to condone their criminality and proceed, move Nigeria forward to where? The church leaders are saying, no, it's will of God. God cannot be like you, dishonest. Whoever said that is dishonest. Nobody's going to condone, nobody's going to accept what was done and the outcome that has been declared. Let it be clear to everybody. Nobody is going to be deceived. We saw it in 2015 when, what was his name, Jega, did what he did and came years after to say, oh, Jonathan did not lose the election. Everybody took it as will of God, act of God, and then moved on. We have been moving on and on. That's how we got to this bottom of the pit that Nigeria is, this pitch darkness that Nigeria is in at this time. Nobody's moving on from. We are now where we have to stop and solve that problem we've been evading since 1967. The people who are going to suffer, the people who are going to be victims, whether they are being killed already or they will be killed by the Fulani conquest agenda that is still very much in process, coming towards you where you are. You have already been expropriated. You are now going to be killed off and your land shared among the Fulani from Senegal and Mauritania and everywhere they're coming from, who are already carrying arms behind your back bushes. And so let those who are going to be victims of the circumstances we're outlining now stand up to insist that we must now go to transition. We are not to go to waste time on who amongst those who subscribe to 1999 Constitution will be the next president of Nigeria. Not Peter Obi, not Tinubu, not Atiku, not anybody else. Nobody will be allowed to govern with the 1999 Constitution outside this cycle that already ended. 2015-2023 cycle was where we now rolled out the alternative to that chaos we're living in. But those who want to keep us in that chaos or even worsen it, talking about mandate, I believe this is the time to pull back and reason. The would-be victims should also join those who have found their voices to say, this interregnum must be the period we first go to sort out the constitutional basis, the damaged constitutional basis of the defunct Federation of Nigeria. We still have a country, but we don't have a federation. Let us go and solve that problem and not imagine that going to coronate ourselves in government house is the solution, or any new leader that will emerge, that will come and do the impossible with a constitution that makes every good thing impossible. We stop there.